Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Hello. Happy day. Happy Thursday. How are you? Thank you for joining Guided Spirit Conversations. As was mentioned in the video, I'm Marla Goldberg, your host. And today, I'm really excited to have Shaun Randall join us. Shaun is a metaphysical novelist and manifestation expert. His work guides us to connect with our true identity and choose our own path. Embrace the miracle that is reality and build a life of abundance, fulfillment, and joy. That's what I call self-love. Welcome, Shaun.
Thank you for having me, Marla. It's great to be with you.
I'm so happy to be here. And yes, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that you're here too. I'm going to make this apology right near at the beginning. I have a new puppy, so I'm a little sleep deprived. And
I,
it's been a long time since I've had one. So
yeah,
if I muddle my words, please forgive me.
no problem at all. I've been there very recently. My fiance took in her friends discovered three brand new puppies in the trash that had been abandoned, and my fiance's dog lover, and we've done fosters and all that. So we inherited these three puppies, and they were shivering in their box of newspaper with their eyes closed when we got them. And she, they didn't have a mother, so she was waking up every 2 hours to bottle, hand feed them with a bottle. And I didn't do the feeding, but I woke up when they were waking up, so I know exactly what you mean. And it's, yeah, it takes a little of your awakeness away during the day, but it's worth it. It's a tremendous
It,
experience.
it is so worth it. And I'm so happy to have my new pet companion with me. And I named her after Archangel Haniel. So her name is Haniel.
Ah, that's so neat. I thought you were going to say
Uh,
Sean. I'm like, wow, that is incredible.
that is
Thank you
even
so much.
cooler.
I'm honored.
So Sean, you have a great story because, you, like many of us, like made a lot of decisions in our lives. You know, we hit bottom and you decided to make changes in your life. And I'm going to let you tell the story opposed to me telling it, but that led you to taking your trip to Peru. So I'm going to let you explain who Shaun was prior to your trip to Peru.
Okay, yeah, that's a good place to start. If somebody was looking at my life from the outside, they would have said, "Man, this guy's got it all together." I had a successful corporate career and was making good money and enjoying life in Chicago, and having a lot of fun with life. I was enjoying life immensely at that point, but there was something, internally there was always something missing, and I was never satisfied with my life. And I didn't know what it was. And it was frustrating because I kind of always had this nagging feeling that I was supposed to be doing something else, and that I wasn't really on the path that I should have been. Um, and truthfully, along the way, what started out just as recreation with alcohol and cocaine use became more of a vice as I started to kind of deal with the emotional side of it, and then it just became an outright downward spiral where I ended up destroying my health and my finances and everything that on the outside at one point had looked great had all fallen apart. I lost everything to the point where my gas and electricity were shut off. And anybody who's familiar with Chicago, you need gas to heat.
Yeah.
Um, and I moved in with a roommate to, I at that point I was well aware of the changes that I needed to make. I was hard headed for a very long time, but once you hit rock bottom, you kind of figure out, all right, this isn't working. What can I start to do? The problem is when you get there, you don't have a lot of resources, both financially and emotionally, to kind of figure it out. Um, but I moved in with a roommate, and I had a great friend who brought me into his real estate business and mentored me and took me under his wing. He knew what I was going through and was there to help me. So I was tremendously fortunate and blessed that I wasn't, even though I was at rock bottom, I wasn't there by myself. But really, where my story kind of starts is a couple years I'd been really working hard to kind of put everything back together and really get on the right track. And it was April 13th of 2018. I'll never forget it. I was going to cat sit for some friends of mine. They have this beautiful apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, and I was really looking forward to it. I was going to go visit some old friends in the South Loop and kind of make the rounds in the old bars and stuff and see people and really enjoy myself. But by the time I got there, there was two problems. I was broke and I was exhausted. I was like, that's not going to be in the cards. And I was driving Uber full time to keep my bills being paid while I was, building the real estate business. And I got in there, and they'd left this note with all the meals they prepared for me for the week that I was going to be there, and they had $100 sitting beside it. And I remember being so happy about that $100. I felt bad that I didn't want to take it because I was doing this as a friend, but I was like, man, that means I don't have to drive tonight. And it was like such a sense of relief. And then immediately tears started coming out of my face because I'm like, how have I gotten to a place in my life where $100 makes that big of a difference to me? And how is it that after, 2 years of really making solid effort that I'm really still in the same position I was before? And so I just decided, I stayed in, I didn't drive. I took the opportunity to kind of reflect and try to figure things out. And I just said, you know what, I've got to really radically change everything that I do. So I committed to being sober, stop drinking, and stop doing drugs. I was a heavy cigarette smoker. I quit smoking. Um, I started working out. I started eating right. I got my, I knew that was the first place I needed to really start was my physical health. And I did great for about 4 months. And then I thought, well, I can have a glass of wine or two out and be a normal person. And I could do that every so often, but I just, there were things that would, I'd turn to binge drinking and drug use and cigarette smoking because it was like, well, I'll just go out and have a cigarette while I'm doing this. And, that doesn't mean I'm a smoker. Of course, the next day, then you end up, buying cigarettes and all that. And so by the end of that year, my health really took a turn for the worse. It had taken a turn for the better, and then it really turned on me. I was struggling with vertigo. I was diagnosed with lupus. And
Ooh.
by December, I just said, you know what, enough is enough. I made this commitment back on April 13th, and I felt like, well, I haven't broken it, but I haven't lived up to the expectation I had for myself. And I said, I'm going to jump with both feet in the pool. I'm going to go all the way in, and I'm going to take control of this and figure it out. Because I knew all the other stuff emotionally and mentally, all the other stuff that I wanted to work on my life, as long as I was pursuing this path of um, you know, drugs and alcohol, that I wasn't going to be able to fix it. And for me, I wasn't going to be able to be part time. For me, it was all or nothing is the only way I could do it. And so through 2019, it was my first year completely sober. I actually struggled with health really, really strongly. I had respiratory illness most of the year. I think my body was just had to clean itself out. And it was a tough year. I wasn't telling people what I was going through. It was a struggle to get up and get out of bed. I felt like I had the flu all the time. But I persisted. I kept exercising. I kept taking care of myself. And, about midway through the year, I started to get some traction. Things started to click for me career wise and head in the right direction. And so to celebrate all this in early 2020 is when I decided to go to Lima and take a vacation. I hadn't been on a good international vacation in a very long time. And so that was kind of my reward to myself. And I went there, and uh, all the cliches are true about when I met my now fiance. I fell in love at first sight. I fell in love head over heels. All the any goofy thing that you want to assign to it was what happened, and we connected. And Lima was an incredible experience. The architecture and the archaeology that you have there of, I remember I was standing in a site called Wakapucana, which is right in the middle of the city, and you can see the glass financial towers and hotels, and you can see the Spanish colonial architecture, and you can see the ocean and the desert ridges. It's really a beautiful place. And I just was, for the first time in a long time, I was having a spiritual experience, and I was really out of my body, and realizing that there's so much around me that I had been missing out because I was so worried about me, and what can I get, and how can my life be great. And um, that was really the week that all that changed for me, and really became a 180 degree, or I guess a 90 degree elbow in my path. And so I was in the airport on the way home to Chicago, and I was crying both kinds of tears. I was joyous that I had met this wonderful human and had encountered this place, Lima, and I felt all kinds of just gratitude and was blessed for that experience. But I was sad because I was leaving and going back to Chicago. And but I ultimately I was going back with high hopes of, like, we're going to get the keep the career momentum going and everything with that, and I'll figure out the relationship piece. I'll go back and forth and all that. And a week within returning to Chicago, the pandemic kicked into gear, and Chicago shut down, and my career was slowed, and the border, I couldn't even fly back and be with Elliot because the border was closed. And it felt like everything that I'd wanted and been working for was right within my grasp, and it was just yanked away from me, and that was really hard to take. And the first 2 months, I was moping around. I think a lot of people did in quarantine. And um, I remember one day I was scrolling through social media, because that's what you should do when you're struggling, is you should look at social media. That will always uplift you right away. Um, but
I know that's a tongue-in-cheek
yes,
statement.
I'm being facetious. Um, so I saw a bunch of posts about people being bored and then complaining about gaining weight, and I thought to myself, well, those two things might be related. And then but I realized I was just holding up a mirror to myself. It was easy to identify it when somebody else said it. So in that moment, I put the phone down. I got a t-shirt and shorts on, and some running shoes, and I went outside and just went for a run, and kind of wanted to get my body moving and clear my head a little bit. And when the whole premise of what I was doing in that time is, I said, there's an opportunity here. I don't know what it is, but there's something that's available for me to find. I just have to look for it. And I decided to. I said, well, the one thing I've got is time. And so there were two things that I had some interest in and had pursued to varying degrees at different times. And I said, well, I'm going to just go all out and dedicate my time into it. And the first was meditation. And I built up little by little. It started maybe 15 minutes, then a half an hour, then an hour. But I built within a month or so to 3 or 4 hours of deep meditation every day, and was able to do a lot of soul searching and really kind of dig down and discover who I truly was and who I truly wanted to be. And the other piece of that was I wanted to dedicate myself to writing. I'd started writing when I was very young, and it had always been something that I did, but it was never really um, the core of who I was, or what this was my life. This is what I want to do. This is the work that I want to do. This is how the universe will use me. And I committed to it and said to myself that it didn't matter really how it turned out. This is who I was and what I was going to be doing. And so that kind of, the first, I guess it was about 7 months during the pandemic. That's what I was working on. And um, September, the end of September that year, I had visited Florida, and I was driving back to Chicago. It's about a 21-hour drive, so I have tons of time to think. And I decided, um, I don't remember exactly where I was along the way, probably 4 or 5 hours into it, and I just decided when the Peruvian border opened back up, I wasn't going to go for a visit. I was going to go. I was going to move down there, and I didn't know for how long, and I didn't know how I could manage career and paying bills and all that stuff. It didn't matter. The most important thing to me at that point was pursuing the relationship and the love that I discovered in this amazing, remarkable human being. And I sensed that Peru was a place that I was supposed to be. I had a calling to go there. So it was two things that drove me. And so I made that decision. And that in that car ride is when I really started to experience kind of divine inspiration in a way that I hadn't before. Um, and the um, the characters for the book Letters from Lima came to me, and I had had this idea about writing a book about Lima and talking about this experience that I had, and I thought it would be a nonfiction book. And um, I kind of had started and stopped that and just didn't make any momentum. Well, on this car ride, it came to me. I knew who the characters were. I knew what they were going to say to each other when they met. I knew their backstory, where they had been in life, and what they looked like, and I knew how the book was going to end, and everything just kind of um, came to me in just really just a heightened spiritual experience is the only way I can describe it. And I hit a panic hit in because I was driving in the car, and so as a writer, you like to take notes when you're getting these ideas. And I thought about pulling over, but that I wasn't the safest idea. So I kept going to the hotel. It was about 20 minutes away, and I said, if I for some reason if I lose this dialogue and if I lose this inspiration, it'll come back to me. It came to me this time, and it'll come back to me. I'm
Mhm.
open to receive it, and I'm going back to Lima, and I'm gonna be with Elliot, and life is going to be different from here on out. And um, that I think that clarity and that power came from the decision that I had made that I was just going to you know do that really scary thing, which was move to Lima.
So how long did it take for you to write the book once you got back to Chicago? I'm not, and did you finish it in Chicago or did you finish it in
No,
Peru?
I finished it in Peru. So so when I got to the hotel, I immediately started to write. I was fortunate that the inspiration stayed there, and so yeah, it went back to me to Chicago, and I was in Chicago for only a few more weeks before I ended up uh, heading back to Lima ultimately in the end of October. So I didn't have enough time to get the book written. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, good thing that I mean, if you look at synchronicities, you're living with somebody, right? So you didn't have to, if you're still living with that person, your roommate, it makes moving easier when you don't have a whole
I
household.
That well, I
Or did you move?
I had been living by myself for probably about 2 years at that point. The
Okay.
roommate was fortunately a short transition in life to kind of get things right sided and all that. But um, yeah, so I was living by myself. But yeah, no, I had a small apartment, and I yeah, it was an easy transition. So that part of it was
Nice.
not complicated. Well, and anything that came up that was complicated, it just didn't seem that way because I was so laser focused on where I was going.
And you always know it's divine when things just flow.
Yeah,
It's when you keep running up and hitting up against walls that you have to stop and go, okay, why are they putting these walls up? Why isn't it flowing? What do I need to pull back about and look and listen and
yeah,
reevaluate possibly?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I learned in this whole experience, particularly towards the beginning of the pandemic when I felt like was so close to everything I wanted. I learned a very valuable lesson that is really one of the centerpieces of my writing and the work that I do now, which is that the universe will give you what you need before it gives you what you want. And so anything that arises that's a challenge or seems like an obstacle, there's something happening there. Either you're not in alignment with yourself and your true path, and so when you're off course in that regard, you're going to hit a lot of obstacles. And sometimes
Yes.
sometimes the universe will put an obstacle in front of you because it needs you to develop and grow a little bit as a person. And in my case specifically, the universe got in my way with the pandemic to prevent me from continuing to make the same mistake that I had made for decades, which was to pursue happiness through career, material success, even relationships as an external motivator and feeling. And the universe said, nope, you've got to turn inside and you've got to figure out who you are and what you want to be. And once I did that, everything changed. And it doesn't mean that life is always roses and peaches and nothing ever happens. But now I realize that when something is a challenge or is upsetting even, I have to look and say, okay, well, what's the opportunity or what's happening, and realize that the next turn is going to be really, it's going to have a better outcome than I could have possibly imagined for myself. That's what I've been experiencing the last 3 years, is that the things that I think I want aren't nearly as beautiful as the things I get when I allow myself to be open to it.
It's amazing. So my way of saying it is I look at everything, especially if it's challenging. Okay, what's the lesson? What's the opportunity? What's the gift? Or what's the combination of it?
Yeah,
Because in my opinion, even the good things, there's always a lesson, opportunity, gift, or combination of. And it's exactly what you were saying, but in Sean words.
that's right. Well, we all have our own words. which is really
We
cool.
definitely. So let's talk about things like meditation.
Okay.
You said you started 15 minutes, then it's grew. So for somebody who hasn't meditated or is just starting out and really frustrated with the process because of the monkey mind or some of the other things, what kind of suggestions do you give them for getting started or really sort of getting on a place where they don't keep judging themselves and getting in their own way?
Yeah, I think, I hear often people say, I can't meditate. And so the immediate question I ask is, well, what kind of meditation are you trying to do? And I get the kind of the weird look because there's all kinds of different meditations, and I think people picture, a Zen Buddhist who gets into a deep trance and becomes, essentially unconscious, like a Tibetan monk. I don't do the kind of meditation they do. The way I would describe that is they're staring at like a blank white wall for an infinite amount of time. And I don't discount that. There's certainly a lot of healing and a lot of beauty that they achieve in their life from that. But it's not what I do now. It's not what's worked for me. And so I think one of the things that's really important when somebody's starting meditation is to realize that how they meditate is going to be different than how I do or how anybody else does. And it's to me, meditation, I just like to put a really simple definition on it, and that is just turning your attention inward and listening to yourself think. And by doing just the simple act of doing that, your monkey mind, as you alluded to it, will be going a million miles an hour, but it will slow down little by little. And it's a matter of just observing your thoughts. And so for me, it was, I would get thoughts like, you know, why is it that I keep screwing up, as just a general thing, you know? Well, if you ask that question, your subconscious will keep providing answers, and that will trickle into your behavior. And so meditation is just slowing your mind down, turning inward, and then training yourself to ask different questions. So instead of, why do I keep screwing up my life? You can ask, how is it that all of these mistakes I've made have prepared me for this present moment so that I can move forward in the future and help other people? Um, and so I think that just kind of understanding what you're attempting to do with meditation is really just to turn inward and listen. And there's a lot of different techniques, and we could probably get into some of them. Um, and there's thousands of great meditation teachers that all do it differently. And as humans, none of us do anything the same way. And so don't try to meditate like somebody else. Just try to be yourself. Just close your eyes, turn inward. You can be sitting comfortably in a chair. You can, I think that's the other thing, right? It's like people think they have to have their middle finger and their thumb depressed and sit Indian style for an hour. And if they can't do that, then they can't meditate. And it's like, well, that's physically uncomfortable for a lot of people. I don't meditate that way. I have. After you've practiced a little bit, it's really cool to try other techniques and open yourself up to that, and you grow that way. But when you're just starting out, just simply turn inward, listen to yourself. The voice that we all have, there's an internal guidance that we all have, and the external world is so loud that we don't hear it. And so it's just a matter of slowing down and listening to ourselves. And when we identify what our heart truly wants, then we can go about working on living that way.
And when we identify what our heart truly wants and we follow that, that's where you find the richness of life. That's where you start to manifest, which we're going to move into,
Yeah,
um, the life you really are divinely meant to live, opposed to the one you might just be living in the moment.
yeah, absolutely.
Because we're not meant to struggle. We're not meant to, like live in our wounds. We're meant to heal and move through them so that we can get to that other place. And it sounds like you, from your story, you've moved through the wounds. You worked through them. You have an understanding of the why and what it was, to get, so it's the key of, to healing the past wounds to be able to move forward into joy and gratitude. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, um, you know, I also think one of the keys to healing wounds is sometimes to say that there will be a scar. I'm gonna take the Band-Aid off, because that's at least for me, I found specifically, and I think a lot of other people relate to this too, is you have these wounds that you band-aid, and you might use having a great career to band-aid it. You might use having a nice car to band-aid it, or you might use um, being good looking to band-aid it. And there's any number of things that you can do. And by doing that, you have it. We think we're letting the wound heal, but we're not. We're really just kind of keeping it locked in its present state. And sometimes you just have to rip the band-aid off and say, I've got a cut there that needs to heal, and I'm going to let the air do that. And there's going to be a scar there. There's going to be something that remains from that. But you know what? Scars are cool. That's kind of how I look at it. And they build character. And when somebody else sees that you have a scar, they immediately feel empathy for you, and they immediately know, okay, this is a real person who's suffered too. And so that opens up a whole, you know, new way of interacting with people. And I think, part of the healing process is just accepting that things that are painful have happened, and you have to just let it go. For lack of a better expression, is to just leave it in the past, and realize that it's part of your journey and your path, and it's preparing you for the life that you're about to live.
It's like getting an antique piece of furniture that has, like cuts in it or or what do you like wounds from people handling
Yeah.
it, water rings,
It,
from putting cups on it without anything underneath it. It stays with you, but it might enhance the beauty rather than detract from the
yeah, it
beauty.
gives it character. So
It truly does. And you have this manifestation method. And so the question I have is healing a part of your teachings in this method?
yeah, it is, and I think that because healing is an ongoing process, and you know there it can be easy when you've done a lot of healing. I went through this, over the last couple of years at different points where, okay, I've healed, I've moved forward, and then something else happens, and you're like, well, that hurts. Most recently, I just lost my father not too long ago, and it's like
Yeah.
that's a wound. You have to heal from that. There's no way around that. And the cool thing is that um, you can heal faster, and you can heal with less pain and suffering than you had in the past in those moments, because you understand that it's really just it's part of the process, and it's part of the journey. And um, so it definitely is part of the method. One of the things that is really core to the manifestation method. Well, and going back a step, I wrote it because as I was working on my life, and then in 2020, when I started to discover manifestation, I started to discover the metaphysical influence that we can have in our lives. I would hear a lot of people say, I can't tell you how it works. I can just tell you that it does. And I thought, well, that's clever and cute, but that doesn't work for a person. It probably works for a lot of other people, but it doesn't work for someone like me. And so I said, well, I have to really figure out how to make this work. And the first thing is turning inward, and it's discovering your true self. And I think that maybe we don't think of it as healing, but I feel like the external world around us has done everything it possibly can, day and night, to pull us away from being our true self. Some of that is intentional, some of it is unintentional. Um, and our parents and well-meaning family members and members of society are constantly trying to condition us to live a safe life and to live a life free of pain. And it comes from a place of love, but it does a tremendous amount of destruction when it pulls us away from who we are as people. And so, yeah, the first way to heal, I believe, is to actually just embrace who you truly are. And that doesn't, it doesn't just pop into your head. You
Hmm.
have to do some work and some soul searching to get there. And I think that's the process of healing, and that's the first part of it. And then as you go, you learn that you create this path for yourself. You learn that everything doesn't work out the way you want to, and so healing is a perpetual process that we have to do, and move forward with.
It is. And so what else is in this manifestation method? Because you've got is it an ongoing class that sort of people can sign up and sort of like jump in, or do you start at certain dates and everybody does it together?
Yeah, so there's an online course that's being produced now. It's available for pre-sale right now, and it's really close to being ready. So that'll be in the next few weeks that's available. And but what I've been doing over the last couple years is actually just working with people individually, and I think that the process is really personal. So people have said you should do group classes, and I think there's probably an opportunity for that I'll discover and figure out. But ultimately, the work I do is really, really personal. It's really customized. And so I take people through the method and the process. And then, all along we're doing guided meditations, we're doing visualizations. And so I think, the power, I can write on a page how to discover yourself. It's really difficult to read that page and then put those things into behavior in your life and do that. But when you're working with somebody who's gone through that journey and that process like I have, I can shorten that distance and the time involved in that just by discovering it's easier sometimes for somebody else to discover who we truly are than it is for ourselves. We tend to second guess our own internal voice, and so the work I do with individuals is really just to empower them to hear themselves. That's We start there and go. So right now I don't do group classes, I just work with individuals, but that's where um, I feel like the material's most effective. So
Well, and so, look at one-on-one is rich, right? Because you're dealing with direct input from you, the leader, who's guiding you through this process, the method, and helping them to understand the different phases.
yeah.
You know, it sounds
Oh,
like you were very much like me, that you were a little hard-headed early on in life, where you kept making the same, yes, when I say the same mistakes, you might be a different company or a different person, but evidently the same thing would happen and you would be, again, somewhat level.
yeah. Yeah, the thing that happened early in my adult life is I decided to take a safer path. And what I mean by safer is financial security, social status, those things, as opposed to pursue my true desire, which, was a lower probability of achieving financial success and achieving the things that I want to. And I think, the curse that I had was that I was actually pretty good at everything I tried doing. And I don't want to break my arm patting myself on the back, but um, it was easy for me to be successful in that path. I think one of the best things that can happen when you try the safe path is something cuts you off and smacks you in the head and says you're not very good at this. I was fortunate that in the sense that I was able to have a successful corporate career because I work well with people and I was a good leader and those things and I don't regret it. I mean, there's a tremendous journey and learning that I had that went that. It helped prepare me for the work that I do now. So I don't want to go back in time, but it became a curse that yeah, I was able to get farther down this path away from my true self because of that. And I think that um, and that looks different for everybody. There's no two cases, no two people that are alike, and the journey back to our true self, for some people it's not that far. Some people just need to kind of turn and look around the corner and step back into it. Other people like myself were farther along. And you said hard-headed, and I think that it's interesting. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to listen to myself because I'm stubborn, right? It's a paradox. And
Yes.
so yeah, I had to learn things the hard way, and I hope to help people avoid that if I can. And what really motivates me and excites me when I get up in the morning is that people who have learned are learning the hard way. I can help pick you up and dust you off and get you pointed in the right direction because I have this mantra that the future is always going to be better, and if it's not, we'd better really enjoy this present moment. But I truly believe that the future will be better. We just have to um, allow ourselves to be open to whatever the universe has in mind for us and stop trying to do the things that have gotten us to the place where in life where we're not happy. So
It's so true. So for those who are skeptics, those who have tried other manifestation programs, etc., for you, how does manifestation work? How does a person achieve the ability to manifest what it is they want to bring themselves to in life?
yeah, so. to be as succinct as possible, the first thing we've talked about, which is to discover yourself and discover your heart's true desires. I think that the universe has made us all completely unique, and it's done that in order to meet different sets of problems that we'll encounter in our lives. And so the universe uses our existence as humans to interact with itself and to meet the needs of others and those around us. And so discovering what that is for you is really where it starts. And once you know that, then you can also determine, well, what is it that I truly, want in life? Because it's not just about what you do for other people. It's also like, I love living by the ocean, right? That,
Yeah.
when I moved to Lima, I wasn't aware that that was something that was really important to me. But once I did, I was like, man, I love this. This is really rewarding to me and gratifying to me. And so when I have things that I want to think about, or even thoughts that are concerning, I can go walk or run by the ocean, and I can't do that and not be in a better place when I stop. And so it's understanding what those things are that you want to enjoy in life. That's okay too. And so you kind of declare those and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And you're really, I think that we think about, oh, I'm gonna declare this into the universe, and that's how I manifest. What you're really doing is you're telling yourself, you're telling your mind, you're teaching your subconscious to pursue those things that you want. And so make a plan and a path, create a direction for your life that you want to pursue, and go after it. And because manifestation is about creating a person, it's not about bringing material stuff into your life. And I think a lot of people get frustrated. They'll see a video on Instagram or TikTok, and they're like, if I close my eyes, I can manifest $1 million into my bank, and they'll do that for 3 weeks, and then they don't get the $1 million, and they're like, well, this junk doesn't work. And well, unfortunately, you were listening to a video that probably wasn't particularly genuine, and certainly wasn't giving good advice. But the key to manifestation isn't bringing stuff into your life. It's about becoming a person, becoming the best version of yourself, becoming in line with your true identity. And so when you carve that out and say, this is who I am and what I want to be, you've now really gotten started on the path. And the very next thing you need to do is let go of that path and say, what I want and the way I think I'm going to get there may not be what the universe has in mind for me. And that's really the key moment with it, is you tell the universe what you want, who you want to become, and you go after it. You give your all out 150% best effort, and then you let go of the results, and you let go of how you get there, and the universe ends up opening a door for you that you just have to walk through, and it starts to become effortless. But it's about who you're becoming as a person. It's not about what you're getting. And we don't have the power to manifest material things into our life. I think that it's really important to understand that. And people will say, well, I want to manifest a great house or a great car or a great career or a great relationship, all those things. What you can do is manifest a person who the your perfect partner will be attracted to. You can create that person, and so you can bring experiences and things into your life. But quantum energy is what makes up everything. It makes us up as people, and the material world around us isn't really material. And I think that one of the powerful things about truly understanding manifestation is that if as long as you're thinking about material, and as long as your attention is focused on stuff, then you're on the wrong track. And it's easy to be on the wrong track because our conscious experience, we kick a rock and we think our foot has made an impact on something solid. Well, what is the rock? The rock is just particles and energy that their vibrational rate is slowed down to a point where we can see it as a rock, because the particles in our minds over millions of years of evolution have formed in a way that we all kind of see rocks. But a dog doesn't see the rock the same way we see the rock. And so we live in the hardest part about being human is we live in our consciousness allows us to experience a material existence that isn't material at all. It's completely immaterial. Everything around us is not stuff. And so as long as we're focused on what that stuff is that we want to have in our life, we're going to continue to struggle and that. But once we realize that we're just having a conscious experience in a way that has happened, and we can't explain why things are the way they are, But once we realize that everything's energy and that our lives, our physical bodies are made up of energy, and everything that we do within that is a process of energy either slowing down or speeding up, um, then you get onto the track of like, well, I can really be who I want to be. And I think that the tricky thing with material possessions and material wealth is it does feel good when you get a nice car. It feels good when you get a promotion at work. It feels good when you get money in your bank account. The problem becomes that you need to get more and more of that stuff to capture those feelings again, and those feelings of social status, and those feelings of liberation, and those feelings of joy and freedom, and all the things we think that money will bring to us. And then once you realize that, if you turn inward and if you start that journey inward, you can access those feelings without any of this stuff, and you can access it at any time, and it's not subject to what other people think. It's subject to your experience that you're having. And that's when things get really, really exciting in your life, is when you realize that any feeling that I'm hoping to attain from the outside world, I can attain it inside of me. And the cool part is, I don't meditate for 3 or 4 hours anymore, uh, per day, but I can achieve the same result in about 5 or 10 minutes because I've done it. I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
I've put the time in it. And so when you turn inward to seek those feelings, you actually need to do less and less of it, and you can achieve, rapturous amounts of joy and rapturous amounts of fulfillment and really just the moment's time. Whereas when you turn to the outside, you need more and more and more and more and more. It's a paradox. And so that's really,
It's almost like drugs and alcohol.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you become addicted to it, and it takes more and more of whatever it is, whether it's drugs and alcohol or material wealth or social status or power or whatever that thing is.
It's true, which is really based in ego. But we need to take a little detour. We need to take a sidestep because it's charity shout out time. And so, for the listeners, every week I ask my guests to give us a charity that is near and dear to their heart because it is, we want to give attention and spotlight a charity, a not for profit that we might not have known about in the past. And so Sean's is 1 in 5. And Sean, I'm going to let you explain what it is.
Yeah. So, um, my, um, I guess, connection to them is that the founder of the charity lost their son to suicide. So they're focused on suicide prevention. And they're focused on, I try to work with individuals who are suffering and dealing with depression, and that they're focused on the clinical side of it and doing research and figuring out how is it that our minds work. And so I love supporting them because that's work that I'm not qualified or capable of doing. And so it's neat to see that. But we share a common mission, which is, you know, um, there's far more people in this world that are suffering to a degree where they're contemplating taking their own life. And there's been a lot of progress made in that, where people are more open talking about it. I don't know if I would be as open as I am about my past struggles 10 years ago, as I feel very comfortable doing today. The world's changed in that regard. And but the problem is that when you're going through it and when you're feeling those feelings, you don't want to talk about it and you don't want to share. And so, there's reaching out like I do, and then there's also kind of figuring out how do we try to prevent people from getting to that place. Um, and it's different for everybody. Everybody gets to a place of depression and suffering and hopelessness, because that's really when people are contemplating suicide, they don't think that their life can get any worse, but they also don't think that they can make it any better. And when I say they, I mean me. I lived in that state for several years, where I thought the best thing I can do is not be here anymore. And so my life and my work is committed to um, helping as many people as I can not get there, and then if they are there, realize that they are hope. That they are hope. Well, they are hope. That's actually a true statement that just popped in my mouth. I thought I was making a mistake, but I didn't. Each person is hope. I really believe that. And the pain that somebody's gone through in their life, is all part of a process where they're being prepared to help other people. And um, so that's why I choose 1 and 5 is to they support the same mission but do it in a different way than I do.
So you can see on our blog the website for 1 in 5, but if you don't see it, it's 1in5, ONEINFIVE.com.au. Check it out, see how you can help, because there's lots of ways we can participate in other people's charities, especially if you don't have the freedom of a lot of funds to be able to bring it bring it through. So check them out, see how you can be of service to them as they're servicing other people. And I think this is a great segue to the next question, which are, let's talk about some best practices on how to deal with stress and anxiety for people.
Yeah, so I think the first part is understanding that it's a normal human experience. It's wired into us. You know, our species evolved and survived because of these emotions and these mental states. You know, if you were living in the African savannah and you heard the bushes rustle behind you, you could think, it's just a breeze. There's nothing to be worried about. Or you could think that might be a hungry lion and I need to become aware of the situation. Well, our ancestors who thought that it was the lion ended up surviving, and the ancestors who thought it was the breeze did not survive. And so we've evolved with these minds where fear was a really powerful defense mechanism, and that's what stress and anxiety ultimately are: is their fear. We put different labels on them, but we're afraid. So, just being aware that it's part of who we are, it's part of how we're wired, and there's nothing wrong with that. And just be aware of why it exists, and then what's happening is that our minds are perceiving something from the outside world as a threat to us. And what I would say is that there really is no threat to us from the outside world. The threats are of our own mental making. And the best way that I deal with anxiety and stress is, understand that we all have the power to choose what we focus on. And so no matter what that initial instinct or emotion or thought that kind of grips our body, we have the choice to react to that. We have the choice of what we can focus on. And so we can focus on the past, the present, or the future. The past is not a good place to focus on. It's useful to learn about history. It's useful to learn about yourself. I think that there's a time and a place for it. But when you're dealing with stress and anxiety and fear, the past is not a good place to look. The best place to look is the future and say, well, what is it that I hope to become, and what do I hope to achieve? And also, the present is a great place to live, where you can say, hey, you know what? This is I'm literally sitting in the middle of a miracle. No matter what I perceive as good or bad, this whole thing is incredibly amazing. But the most important thing is to realize that you make that choice of where your focus is, and you can focus on what you have or what you don't have. And if you focus on what you don't have, then you're gonna remain in a state of fear and anxiety. If you focus on what you do have, which is always an opportunity, and always, even just by doing that, you become aware of the fact that I have this incredible mind that allows me to translate the world around me in the way that I want to. Um, and that's I think the best technique is to really kind of be able to direct your focus.
Well, it's be about mindfulness. And also, when you focus on what you do have, which is basically gratitude. I have a roof
Yeah,
over my head. I have clothes on my back that I like. Even if you don't like them, they're still keeping you warm. They're keeping you covered. They serve its purpose. And when you're grateful for what you have, the universe supplies more of
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
When you sit there and think about what you don't have, guess what the universe supplies?
Yeah,
More of what you
that's
don't
right.
have. So
Well, I
it's
always say that gratitude is the best conductor of quantum energy that exists in the universe. And so if you whatever it is that you need in your life, if you need to be more creative, if you need to feel more love, being grateful will bring all of those things into your life.
It will. And, even being grateful for those things that don't serve you. Like you can be grateful for relationships that don't serve you because it points out for the kind of relationships you don't that don't do well in your life. And then you can make the choice to take them out of your
Yeah.
life. And so you can have more relationship, make room for more of those good relationships, those really lovely, loving, supportive, joyful
Yeah,
relationships.
that's so important because, the loss of a relationship with an intimate partner is a traumatic event. And, the other power, we choose what we focus on. We also choose the meaning of the events in our lives that we assign. And so, just like you said, that's really powerful. You can realize that, yeah, I'm this thing that I've has meant so much to me is ending, but that's opening up a whole field of possibility and opportunity that I wouldn't be able to experience otherwise. And so, there's more love available, and there's um, different kinds of love that you're ready for. But you choose to believe that, or you choose not to believe that. And somebody can say, well, you can't prove that. I don't need to. I have faith that that's the way it's going to be, and that faith and that belief system that I have, whether it's true or not, doesn't matter. It empowers my life, and it allows me to receive the blessings that are available. And I think that, the universe is equally balanced between positive and negative. That's just a law of physics. That's the nature of our reality, and everything is on this continuum of polarity. And so, hot and cold are existing simultaneously in this universe together, and there's all kinds of ranges of warm and chilly in between. And if I'm looking for cold, I'll find it. If I'm looking for heat, I'll find it. And so, um, that's that's the power of what you just described there, is our ability to choose.
It's so important. And choice is really important too in one's environment, existence, because your choices affect, it's like that pebble in a clear lake, the ripple effect goes out there, whether you see it or not, you will
Yeah,
affect people in your life, things in your life as well, and then goes into other people's
yeah.
lives.
Well, and I think, that to me is a core tenet of manifestation, is that you take radical responsibility for the choices you make, and you decide, this is who I am, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to go after. And then, in taking radical responsibility for the choice, you let go of the outcome of it. And that's really important, is to say, I'm going to do my best and put my best intention forward in this. And then whatever happens, I'm going to be okay with it, because I don't know, you know, the next thing that happens, I don't know where that is in the path. It could be not the thing that I want immediately, but it could turn out to be the thing that's, so important in my life. And I speak with a lot of passion and power on it, because I know it's true that, I spent years really working hard on my life, and I ended up at a place where I was so close to everything that I wanted, and it got yanked away from me. And it was like, everything in my soul wanted to just say, "Screw this! I'm done with trying." But I was ready at that point to realize, you know what? There's something better available to me than what I had planned for myself. And that was the first time I walked through that door of just being willing to go where the universe takes you, as long as you're in alignment with who you truly are, who you were created to be. The universe will guide you to places that you had no idea could possibly exist.
It's so true. We've got literally a couple more minutes left. Shaun, what would you like to share with the listening audience that I have not asked you about?
Oh boy. Um, so I always want to make sure that I drive home the point that the universe will give you what you need before you get what you want. We've done that. And I think, the other thing that's so important is to realize that the journey towards yourself, is by turning and actually talking to yourself and listening to yourself. And we've covered that. And then I always want to make sure we realize that we have to let go of our desired outcomes and realize that there's something better for us. And we've talked about that, and we've done that. So I don't know. I would just say, I think I would just say that, really just trust that the best is yet to come. The future will be brighter than today. No matter how great today is, tomorrow is going to be even better. And just to embrace that, and then it happens. And continue to focus on the things in your life that you're grateful for, no matter what you're going through. And I think that, we touched on it and talked about it, but I really believe that being grateful for the past is healing. Being grateful for where you're at is empowering, and then being grateful for the future and what is yet to come is it becomes mind blowing, and that really is the key to transforming the nature of your own existence and the experience that you're having while you're here.
I love that. Healing, empowering, and mind blowing. That's wonderful. It's a great message to close on. Thank you so much, Shaun. I appreciate you coming on, especially in lieu of, recently losing your father. So I'm truly sorry. Again, my condolences. But I'm so grateful for you coming on and sharing your information because I know this is powerful and it can be so helpful for people on their journey.
Yeah.
Because what you ultimately get by doing what you're talking about is you start feeling love for yourself and accepting yourself. And it's we're all trying to get everybody to that place of healing so that they can love who they are, because we're all amazing beings of light. And thank you for
Well,
sharing that.
thank you for having me here, and thank you for sharing your time and your energy and experience with me. It's been truly just wonderful and healing to be here and talk to you. So the timing was uh, somewhere on a continuum between serendipity and divinity. The timing of this show. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to thank Bridget, my right hand, my left hand. Thank you so much. I want to thank you, the listening audience, for all you do for me and for coming on to the show, supporting me. So grateful each and every day for each and every one of you. So thank you for taking that time. Check out Shaun's information. His website is Shaun, Shaun hyphen Randall, RAND, I'm sorry,
Yep.
ALL. It's right in front of me, and I'm just having this blank out. .com. But check out. I really love your website. It's really powerful and
Thank you.
beautiful. So
Thank you.
check out the website. Check out oneinfive.com.au. See how you can help. Shaun's information is going to be on our blog, so you can't miss it. And if you check out his website, you'll know when the class is. He starts running his classes, so you don't have to miss one of those either. And you can start manifesting the life that you are divinely meant to live. So thank you all. Next week, my guest is going to be, me. It's going to be a solo show. So I hope you'll tune in. It's going to be on self love, and I will figure out which aspect of attaining self love, path to self love, and share it with you in my blog. Um, as I leave you, as always, I send you love, blessings, and gratitude. Know how grateful I am that you are in my life in whatever capacity you're in it. For not only are you my student, you're my teacher. Not only am I a teacher, I'm also a student. So thank you. And I'm going to say these words to you to send you off for the week. Those words are, I love you. You are loved, not just by me, not just by family and friends, but you have so many beings on the other side of the veil that are your biggest cheerleaders. Two tickets. Number one, they don't have free will, so you need to ask for what you need, want, and desire. Ask so they can conspire and start working on your behalf. Part two, be open to how it comes to you. It's not linear. It's not going to be a direct in your ear quote, though it can be. A lot of times they like to, should I say, a little work for it a little bit. So it might be in a passage in a book. You might overhear a conversation, hear something in a movie or TV show or a podcast that really resonates. And that's where you'll get your answers. So remember to ask for what you need, want, and desire. Okay, I send you off to this week. Again, stay well, stay safe, and know you're loved. Take care.